Hey Wildcats, I'm Mrs. Reynoso. I'm one of the counselors, and I'm here to walk you through an introduction to college admissions. The presentation is geared toward 9th through 11th grades, and so it's really just designed to give you an idea of what's coming, what some of your post-high school goal options are, and how to make sure you're staying on track. So I'm going to jump right on in so that you can watch this at your convenience, and we can make sure that you know what to expect in the next couple years. So we're going to talk a little bit about community colleges. We're going to talk about UCs and Cal States. We are going to touch upon the A through G requirements, private colleges, admissions testing and evaluation. I know there's a lot of questions surrounding that. Letters of recommendation, as well as secondary school reports, organizational tips, some essential skills, and of course, the question and answer. So I do want to thank you all for submitting your questions through the Google form. If they weren't answered in the natural progression of the presentation, I will address them at the very end. So not to worry, I got them. So thank you for taking the time, and I want to make sure I can address all of those concerns and questions. Okay, so the first thing to know is what your options are for college. And there is a lot. We are so fortunate to live in California because there's so many choices available to us right here. And then of course, looking outside of California, that those doors so many other options out there. So we have community colleges, so local or out of the area. We have Cal State schools, so California State University system. We have the University of California system, which I'll refer to as the UCs, independent and private colleges or universities, and of course, a ton of out-of-state, both public and private universities. So I'm first going to touch on community colleges and kind of just go over what some of the advantages are of a California community college. And what many people don't know is there are about 114 community colleges in California. So we have so many choices. We are so fortunate to have an amazing campus right down the street with College of the Canyons. So we want to make sure that maybe you want to think about a community college. Maybe that is right for you, but you may not want to go right down the street to COC, and that's fine too. There's a lot of different options out there, but it is important to know what a great resource COC is right down the street. So the entrance requirements for community college really are, you got to be 18 and a high school graduate or have your GED. Now, question I get a lot is, do I have to take the SAT? And the answer is no, you do not need to take the SAT for admissions to a California community college. You're just looking at being 18 and a high school graduate or have a GED, all right? So cost per unit, and cost per unit pretty much comes down to approximately, keep in mind it's across the board, about $46 per unit. But at COC, they have a very unique program called the Canyons Promise Program that if you apply for, you follow all of their steps and meet all their deadlines, and they help guide you through it all, and they cover the price per unit for the first 2 years. So it's an amazing deal. So if you want more information about that, please feel free to visit COC's website. I have nothing but great things to say about their program. So at community colleges, you have a few choices. So we hear a lot when we work with our students that a lot of them want to go to a community college and then transfer to a four-year school. And so you can absolutely do that. They have a huge amount of courses that are articulated, and they have agreements with the four-year schools and that meet many of the general education requirements and will transfer with our students. You can also obtain your AA and AS, so Associate of Arts or Associates of Science degrees. And there are many, many career majors. So you have a lot of choices when you head on over to the community college. Some advantages, like I mentioned, affordable costs, to say the least, especially if you participate in the Canyons Promise program. Smaller class sizes. So a lot of students don't realize that the class sizes are going to look very similar, if not some of them even smaller than what you see in high school now. So that can be very beneficial because it's what you're used to, and it allows you an opportunity to have personal interaction with staff. And it's very important to get to know your teachers. And so that's something that in some of the larger universities, some students are ready for and some aren't, that you really get a chance to get to know the people who are teaching you, just like in high school, you have that opportunity as well. You have a very general education curriculum, so you have all kinds of choices. So you always hear about those gen ed requirements, and yes, they are there, but you have a ton of choices. I mean, I love our requirements in high school, but you can pick and choose to really reflect some areas of interest you have at a community college, because there's so many different choices of classes to pick, and you'll find the right one for you. They have incredibly successful transfer rates to UCs, Cal States, and private schools. I like it because it is a smooth transition to the university setting. It's really important, and I correct my students when they say it quite often, is when they say I'm just going to community college. No, you're going to college. And it's really important that students realize and remember community college is college, and it is there. And the four-year schools are saying these courses are the equivalent to our classes when they're transferring. So that means they are important core intensive classes. So therefore it is a smooth transition to a university setting. So absolutely, a student is going to community college, they're going to college. And it's an important piece to remember, because students who go in and look at it as an intense program that they want to be successful in, they transfer out very, very quickly. And of course, it's a very smooth preparation for an intensive university setting. They also offer programs leading to certification as well as licensure. And so there's all kinds of amazing programs. Seriously, just check out their website. It might be something you might want to check out. So I mentioned that there are the Cal States and the UCs. So we're fortunate in California to have two amazing public university systems. And so they're a little bit different. So I wanted to point those out. So the Cal States, there's actually 23 Cal State campuses, and the price is going to run you, now this is ballpark, trust me, it can absolutely be more if your parents are looking at like, I think it was more when your brother or sister went. It absolutely can be anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000. Cal State's, it's important to know, no longer use the SAT or ACT to determine admissions eligibility. Okay, so I'm going to say that again because this is something very different. The Cal States no longer take SAT or ACTs to determine admissions eligibility. Okay. If accepted to the university, those SATs or ACTs can be used to measure placement in math and written communication courses. So that is where they will use them if you wish to submit them and you took them. So that's a massive change from prior years. UCs, the University of California system, so they have 9 undergraduate campuses. The cost is going to run you approximately, including all expenses, from $29,000 to about $36,000. Again, can definitely go up significantly. So I'm just saying that's definitely an approximation. UC will not, again, very new, will not consider SAT nor ACT scores when making admissions decisions or awarding scholarships. Okay, say it again, no SATs or ACTs when making admissions decisions for the UCs or awarding scholarships. Okay, if you choose to submit them, they may be used for placement, same thing, or to fulfill minimum requirements for certain courses after you enroll. So huge change than we've seen over the years. So the pandemic, they started shifting, and now they have publicly said that neither one will use the SAT nor ACT. So the differences between the two, they're pretty different in many ways. And so the UCs really are designed to prepare students to advance to graduate and professional educational programs. There's a heavy emphasis on developing research skills, and it really can participate. You have opportunities to participate in faculty research projects as well as an undergraduate, which is an incredible opportunity. Of course, many private schools offer that as well. Course content has a tendency to be theoretical and analytical. Minimal professional training majors are offered through the UCs. And they provide internships and work abroad programs to provide students with practical job training and enhance their academic training. While the Cal States have a tendency to prepare actually a majority of students to enter the job market right after completion of their bachelor's degree. A little easier access to professors overall. There are more undergraduate majors with professional training. Internships are actually embedded into their curriculum. And believe it or not, they do prepare about 60% of the teachers in the state of California, which is pretty amazing. They produce about 40% of the engineering graduates and more graduates in business, agriculture, communications, health education, and public administration than any other California university and colleges combined. So I put this side by side because I think it's important when we are picking our schools and you're starting to think about what kind of schools you want to go to, that you truly are looking at the differences. I want you to, when you research schools, go past the name brand and look at which setting is really going to be better for you and offer you the opportunities you're looking for. All right. A through G requirements. So you've been hearing about this since before you came to high school because we started giving you this information actually in 8th grade. And so A through G requirements, what they are the basic admissions requirements for the Cal States and the UC schools. So they put forth and they say, we want you to complete these courses at the minimum or more with a grade or C or higher in order to be eligible to apply to our school. Okay. So this is a key. So you, believe it or not, can actually graduate high school and not meet an A through G requirements because there are a few differences with our graduation requirements. Okay, so I'm going to go through here just to make sure that you're taking a look at what classes you're taking and you are planning. And if hopefully you don't have a D, but if you do have a D or an F in any of these classes, you understand that you would need to make them up, so retake them over summer school in order to be eligible to apply directly to a UC or Cal State after high school, directly out of high school. Now, if your plan is to go to community college first and transfer, that's a different conversation. This part is for direct admissions to a UC or a Cal State to be eligible to apply. Now, for both of these, if you are eligible with the A through G requirements, chances are you are meeting the requirements for most other schools, but you always want to double check, okay? So English 4 years, again, a C or higher. Math is going to be the same for both Cal States and UCs. It's going to be a 3 years with the completion of Algebra 2 or higher. Really 4 years recommended. So you notice for the UC requirements, I have 4 years recommended. You really want to do that. And really even for Cal States, especially schools near a beach, are getting more and more competitive. So it is strongly recommended to do that. History and social science, you're looking at 2 years. You're covering that with your graduation requirements with US history and modern civilization. Lab science, 2 years is what's required, but 3 really is strongly recommended. The UC specifically love biology, chemistry, and physics. Absolutely love it. But the more competitive the school, the more competitive they, look at the course selection for students, especially their senior year. So if, depending on how competitive the school is, you might want to think of actually 3 to 4 years of science, if that works for you in conjunction with your potential major. Now, foreign language. So this is what I referenced when it comes to graduation requirements, that you can actually graduate high school and not meet the A through G requirements, because foreign language, you don't need to graduate, but it is an A through G requirement. So the minimum requirement is 2 years of the same language, but 3 really is strongly recommended. Again, of the same language, grades C or higher. Visual and performing arts, 1 full year of visual performing arts within the same subject area, as well as same concentration, as well as a college prep elective. So the college prep elective is very similar to your graduation requirements in the sense that, your graduation requirements, you have to do 72.5 elective credits. So how that happens is if you go above and beyond in English, math, history, lab science, or foreign language, that is your college prep elective. That falls into that category. Other classes that fall into that category is we have AP Computer Science Principles, we have AP Computer Science, we have sociology, we have psychology, we even have economics, and we also have, quite a few other classes, unique classes that fall into that category. So if you are on the track to want to graduate from high school and apply directly to a 4-year school, odds are you're going to hit that college prep elective without a problem the moment you go above and beyond in the other categories. If you're not sure, pop your head on into your counselor, make sure, double check. But remember, every time we meet with you to register you for classes, we do actually review this with you to make sure that you are on track with that. All right. Private and out-of-state colleges and universities. There are so many to choose from if you leave California, okay? Nearly 4,000 other colleges and universities in the US. So as you can imagine, as much as I would love to go through every single requirement, I can't for the sake of time. Most of them are going to overlap with the A through G requirements that I talked about, which is why we touch on those. But it is important, if you have your eye on any outside schools, to double check their requirements to make sure you're meeting those. Tuition is going to vary drastically. So you're looking at anywhere from 20,000 to 80,000 plus per year. Individual admissions testing requirements, so you want to check. There are still, believe it or not, some schools that are requiring the SATs and ACTs. I really encourage you to check out this website, fairtest.org. This is going to give you all of the up-to-date schools that are not requiring tests, SAT or ACT exams. So, like I said, they have a wide variety of requirements, but many are going to require a minimum of a 2.0 GPA. Some are going to have religious affiliations. So it's important to please check the individual campus websites. Use Zello. That's going to help as well. But if you access it in Zello, go ahead and pop on into the individual campus to make sure you're on track. If you're not sure, pop your head in, talk to your counselor. All right. So, I know I sound like a little bit of a broken record, and I'm doing this for a purpose, is because you really want to make sure, because some of the schools are going to have a very specific number of courses a student needs to complete. Okay. So, impossible to list them all, but please, please, please check them. Okay. All right. Admissions testing, the big question's been going on since we went to distance learning 2 years ago. Okay. So it's changing. So that's why it's super important you check each school's requirement depending on your grade level. Okay. Many schools are moving to test optional or test blind, and things may continue to change. So if you're watching this as a freshman, you want to continue keeping an eye on it, because it may continue to change, because many schools adopted a temporary testing admissions policy, and they will put what grade level it will apply to. In other words, for a class of fall admissions of 2023 or 2024, and they'll list that. And so you want to find the one that applies to you. And many schools are moving away. I honestly think as they start to figure out they may or may not need the SAT or ACT, they are shifting their focus, trying to see if they're able to do admissions properly. So, and in an equitable way. So it's going to be very interesting to watch it over the years. My apology, I don't have a hard and fast rule. I kind of wish I did, but it does open things up quite a bit for many, many more students without that SAT and ACT. Now, if you do take it, it never hurts to have it in your back pocket. So you have options, right? You don't want to all of a sudden want to apply to a college your senior year and find out, oh, I need to do the SAT or ACT, and you didn't take it. So it doesn't hurt to take it. It's always good to have. So recommended really to start taking your SAT or ACT in the spring of your junior year. A lot depends on your math level. Good thing to kind of chat with your counselor to see what they recommend. But the English scores have a tendency to be a little higher, as well as the math. So spring of your junior year is when I recommend doing it. Recommend taking the PSAT and MSQT in ideally your 11th grade year, because that's actually when you can qualify for national merit. And MSQT is a national merit scholastic qualifying exam or qualifying test. And so you do that in 10th grade. If you want a little practice, 11th grade, if you want some practice in 10th, you're welcome to do that as well. For the PSAT, West Ranch offers it on our campus to our students in October. We have a limited number of exams, and so those usually open up right around September for purchase. And so we'll always be offered to our 11th graders first. And if we don't sell out with 11th graders, we'll open it up to 10th graders from there. But we do have limited number of tests there, but we'll for sure let you know through the bulletin, through emails, as when we open things up. Students sign up directly. If you want to take the SAT, they sign up directly with College Board. Same thing with the ACT. So it's collegeboard.org for the SAT, and for the ACT, act.org. Okay, so we don't do that for you. I do caution you, give yourself a good half hour. Takes a while to register. So be ready to sit there for a little while. It's not just a few clicks and you're ready to go. Do keep an eye out. I do recommend that you sign up early. Usually there's one local testing center per semester. So one of the schools in the Valley will usually offer, this year West Ranch did, I'm not too sure if we're doing it next year, I think so, but it will be one each semester. So we'll offer one test in the fall and one test in the spring. Now, there are many other testing locations and many other opportunities to take the SAT outside of the Valley, but I'm just telling you that for the purposes of if you wanted to kind of stay here, but the location does fill up. I wanted to bring your attention to an amazing program called the Western Undergraduate Exchange. And a lot of people don't know about it. So it's called WUI is how we refer to it. But it really is when out-of-state students pay no more than 150% of the in-state tuition at participating schools compared to non-resident students that can exceed 300%. So in other words, pretty much it's in-state tuition costs if you're a California student in specific areas, in specific schools. So some participating schools are in Alaska, Arizona, well, California, you are in state, Colorado, Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, and so on, even Washington. So check it out. I do encourage you to take a look at that because I hear a lot students or parents don't really want to go outside of California because they don't want to pay out-of-state tuition costs. And this might be that opportunity if that's something you want to do. There actually is a way to do it and some requirements. So take a little time and check out the Western Undergraduate Exchange. Spring admissions test. So I put this here just so you have an idea on what some of the dates are. So the SATs will offer exams in March, May, and June, ACT, February, April, and June. But like I said, go ahead and check out their specific websites, and that's going to give you your most updated calendar and registration dates and deadlines. So I put this here really for you just to do a screenshot. I'm not going to go through each and every little detail here, but it's just a quick comparison of ACT and SAT, and you can see how they break down and how they differ a little bit. So you know, what I tell my students, if you have the ability and the means and the time and the energy to do it, is I say take both tests and see how you do and which one you like better, and then move forward in testing again with the other ones if you want to do any additional studying to test again to see if you can improve those scores. So go ahead, take a screenshot, refer back to it. There's all kinds of comparison charts online for you to access as well. I just pulled this one offline. And so I thank them for putting that chart together for me, but I wanted to put that out there for you. I also wanted to point out the reality of college admissions. And the reality is there is a college out there you can get into. So a lot of our students focus very on like the tippity top schools, and many of these tippity top schools have a very low admissions rate and you hear about students not getting in and it's impossible to get into colleges. But the reality is 87% of colleges accept more than 90% of those students who apply. And that is the reality. So you have to apply broadly, look at many different schools that might fit a student's need. Now, it's up to you, but I want to make sure that we're communicating that there are colleges out there. You just need to apply to them. We need to look beyond the beach sometimes and look a little broader. All right. So in other words, look beyond those name brand schools. Now, factors that colleges consider most important in admissions. Okay. Grades in college prep courses, so very important no matter what, especially with many schools moving away from the SAT, they are looking at grades without a doubt. Strength of curriculum is also important. They're looking at what classes you pick, and they're looking that you maximize, especially the more competitive schools, that you maximize the curriculum available to you on your campus, in other words, on West Ranch's campus. And if you choose to take classes outside of the campus, look to that as a way to enhance your transcript, to demonstrate intellectual curiosity, to explore other opportunities that maybe we don't offer you here. Okay, so important to keep that in mind. Grades in all classes, essay or writing sample, very important. Class rank to some degree with some schools, letters of recommendation, demonstrated interest, interview, some schools will offer an interview opportunity. Extracurricular activities, And some schools standardize admissions testing and scores. Some, like I put there, this is ever changing and evolving on that one. So the big question, how do I apply to colleges? So all the UC and the Cal State applications will be due November 30th. Okay, put that in your calendar now. That has been there for forever. Occasionally, if something happens with their website, they extend it. Overall, November 30th. You can do all UC, all applications are done online now, actually. So UC and Cal States require an application, all to be completed online. Private schools and out-of-state deadlines are actually going to vary by a majority of, but majority of them are going to be due in the fall of your senior year or the early part of the calendar year. So in other words, by fall, most by like December, November, and if not, you're going to have some due in January and a handful in February. Okay. Applications, like I said, are completed online. It's important to read all instructions so carefully, as there's oftentimes many components to those applications, especially for private schools, and you don't want to miss a thing that would disqualify you. So you want to read through step by step. Now, the letters of recommendation, it's so confusing because not everybody wants them. Overall, private schools are going to require letters of recommendation. So there is a very specific process at West Ranch on how to request those. And so it was really important, again, that you put this in your calendar, that you must provide teachers and counselors with plenty of notice. And we're talking like a minimum of 3 weeks. And because there is a very specific procedure, I'll talk about it more during the senior workshop, but you need to follow these steps because many counselors, many teachers are writing a lot of letters of recommendation. So what may seem no problem for you because you gave it to them, they should have enough time. They also have to get 70 others done, you know, ballpark somewhere in there. So it's important to keep that in mind. Letters of rec and secondary school reports. And so I did this little chart, excuse me, to give you an idea. So private schools oftentimes utilize the common application. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Not UCs nor Cal State schools are oftentimes going to want a letter of recommendation as well as something called a secondary school report. Okay, forms in general there'll be forms. We'll do a Google form next year. They're going to be sent and provided to the counselor by a specific deadline. There's going to be 2 deadlines depending on if you're doing early action, early decision, which we'll talk about in a bit. You'll need to do a brag sheet, okay? And you will actually, well, we will strongly request that you do a face-to-face contact with the counselor saying, hey, do you mind writing me a letter of recommendation rather than just firing off an email with the expectation will be done. We do that for a few reasons. Number 1, so we can get to see your smiling faces. Number 2, it helps us write stronger letters because we have an opportunity to talk to you about the letters. And number 3, it's great practice for when you grow up, quite frankly. So details about this process, like I said, I'll go into a lot more detail your senior year, but I want you to know it is there, that you will need to follow step by step in order to ensure that we are hitting all the proper deadlines, okay? Some of the things the counselors are asked within what's called the secondary school report, we're actually being asked to kind of rank you, so to speak. We're asked about academic achievement in the context of your class, extracurricular accomplishments, personal qualities and character, how long we've known you, how we best describe you, as well as an evaluation. So as you can see, we're asked this stuff. So it really is to your advantage. Get to know your counselor. Pop your head in. Don't be a stranger. Financial aid, okay? So I know I'm flying through all of this so fast, but there's a lot of information I want to get out there. And I really want to emphasize the importance for applying for financial aid your senior year, okay? And the reason for this is it doesn't hurt. Even if you think in the back of your head, well, I'm not going to qualify for anything, you never know, okay? So it doesn't hurt to just fill out what's called the FAFSA, which is a free application for federal student aid. And some schools are going to require something called the CSS profile. The gold standard, though, is going to be that FAFSA. So much aid goes unused because people think they don't qualify. So, I mean, what's the worst? They come back and they say you qualify for a loan. It can't hurt to apply. and they're low interest loans for that matter. You can actually start applying as early as October 1st of your senior year for financial aid, which actually opens you up for opportunities for grants as well as work study and loans, like I mentioned, low interest loans. That will have to be reapplied every single year, but October 1st of your senior year is when you are going to start applying. Okay. Cal Grant is also part of that program. So Cal Grant is actually going to be due March 2nd of your senior year, and you get that by just applying through the FAFSA. So it's really easy to apply for Cal Grant at the same time. California DREAM Act offers aid to many students who may not be eligible to apply for federal aid. And those two areas, I actually am going to go over a little bit more detail with our 11th graders. We're going to pop in, do an 11th grade class presentation and give them a handout. So there's a lot more information on financial aid in that handout. And I encourage you to ask your student for that. We're going to be going in hopefully the 3rd week of March. So keep your eyes open for that handout. We're also going to email it home. Financial aid and funding includes grants, scholarships, work studies, and student loans. Check out our financial aid webinar. We actually currently have it up on the West Ranch website, gives you a general overview. Our friends over at College of the Canyons, who are experts in financial aid, help us out, and they're a wonderful resource and help guide us on the whole financial aid process as well. And scholarships. We get asked all the time, how do you apply for scholarships? And you just look for them. And so we are fortunate, and one of our counselors helps maintain a great list of scholarships through Xello, Xello, that the students can access right through their waffle. And you'll see a lot of our local scholarships. You can also, there's plenty other scholarship search engines out there, but the ones specific in Xello that we are listing are ones that we've had a lot of success with our students throughout the years. So timeline for college admissions. I really suggest, if you're an 11th grader and you're watching this with your parents, is keep a handy calendar and checklist available so that you're not caught off guard as to what's happening and like, what am I doing? And oh my gosh, I can't believe this time snuck up on me. So I do recommend having a little calendar and checklist. Research college admissions requirements. Make sure you record those key dates so you're not surprised. Like I said, early decision and early action. If you are planning to apply, early decision and early action, it really is going to come into play right around October, mid-November of your senior year. So it's going to sneak up on you. I also go into more detail in that handout I'm going to give to the 11th graders, because that's going to be more pertinent to them when it comes to those dates and deadlines. You must make contact with your teachers and counselors. Really, it's going to be by September 1st. We may move that deadline a little bit, but we'll talk more about that for, with seniors as what those specific deadlines are going to be. UC and Cal State admissions, like I said, November 30th. Private and out-of-state schools for regular decision are usually going to range from December 1st through January 15th. FAFSA, another important date to put on there, like I just talked about. You can start doing it as October 1st of your senior year. Cal Grant, all your FAFSA, just basically all that needs to be done by March 2nd. So hopefully you will have done that already. And there's something called the GPA verification form through Cal Grant that finalizes your Cal Grant application. So what that does is you submit the FAFSA, and the district actually uploads automatically your Cal Grant GPA. The two find each other, as long as all the spelling's correct. The two find each other and you automatically apply for Cal Grant. So it's great. Set a timeline for requesting letters of recommendation and secondary school reports. So all super important things to put on that checklist and that calendar. I can't stress to you enough the importance of being organized with this. Create a planning timeline, post it in a central place so that you don't forget. So you don't argue with your family about you being on top of things for the students. And it's really important to select your 12th grade classes very carefully. And another reason I'm talking about this in your spring of your 11th grade year, if you're looking at this now, because if you apply to college and you tell them what classes, they're going to ask you what classes you're taking and what classes you plan to take. If you apply to college and tell them you're taking all of these classes, then change your mind, you have to tell them which classes you changed. If you dropped an AP class, you have to tell them, because they're assuming you're completing your classes based on what you told them in their application. It's important also to have a family discussion. Honestly, it seems weird, but you do need to talk about what size school you guys are all thinking about, location, distance from home, and cost. because I encourage you to start having this conversation now, because it's really difficult to have it after the fact. And so if students and parents and guardians are all on board and understand the parameters, especially when it comes to cost and location, it's a better conversation to have before the applications go out than after the admissions decisions come back. All right. Step 3, standardized testing planning. If you want to take the SAT, like I said, good to have in your back pocket. Spring of your junior year, PSAT only offered in October. Okay, we'll get a breakdown of what those scores mean. For the PSAT, it's going to give you a breakdown of where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and what areas you might want to focus in on. You can look into prep courses if you want. I do encourage you to take a look at College Board. They have partnered with Khan Academy. There's some amazing free resources as well. And again, sign up for SAT or ACT directly through the website for that spring year, junior year. So research, it comes up like, when should I start looking at colleges? Like now. If you're a freshman, start looking now. If you're a junior, start looking now. If you have a chance to visit a campus and take a tour, check it out, take that opportunity. Now that we're out of COVID, they're letting people tour. It's so important. You get a really good feel for a college. Meet with admissions counselor and representatives. We oftentimes have admissions counselors come here and meet with our students, and sometimes no one even talks to them. So we have them come, they're outside the counseling office, ready to chat with you. So take advantage and learn about their school. Even if it's a school you have never heard of, ask some questions. You may be surprised. They may have the perfect program for you. And if you're a freshman, you can ask those questions. If you're a junior, you can ask those questions. There's no limit. Verify those admissions requirements, utilize Zello, use their websites, make sure you're determining the actual cost of attendance, because keep in mind, you have cost of attendance that comes into play even with travel is a big part. Housing is a big part. Investigate, make sure that they offer the academic programs you're thinking about. If you have a chance to attend a class, that's super helpful. Talk with students and faculty. That's very helpful. And even if it's students who aren't your tour guide, if you go on a tour, because you really want to get the true inside information about the school and the vibe of the school. All right. And then, of course, discuss your chances of success once you get there. If you're a student who doesn't like to do homework, or you're a student and you're going to a super academic school and, a lot of people are studying a lot, that might not be the best fit for you. Or if you're super academic and you like a lot of focus, and there is a lot of things going on a campus that might not work for you and maybe not as focused, that's an important piece to hear about as well. Okay, so coming up, I want you to know, if you're an 11th grader watching this, we have so much help available to you next year. You just have to access it. So we're going to have a college night that's going to be actually for parents and students. It is either going to be in person or a webinar. We're still working that out. We're not too sure. We want to maximize you because you're so busy. So we may do a webinar just to make it more accessible to you. A financial aid night. We're going to have Cash for College. We'll have a webinar offered through that, or it'll be through COC. College application workshop. We have all kinds of individual sections on how to navigate the college applications. Those are always updated and posted to the senior website. So we have those. We have lunchtime college app workshops where you drop in. So where we have all the counselors go into a classroom, we have a Chrome cart and Chromebook cart, and we sit there and you ask us questions. You start your application, but you have us right there to help you out. We usually ramp those up in the beginning of November. About once a week, oftentimes, maybe sometimes twice a week, depending on need. And kids just do the work, and they have a counselor right there if they get stuck on any unique questions. Essay tips, again, online posted webinars. The English teachers help the students in class, and we're also more than happy to help out there. Now, I want to point this out. Super important that you follow our procedures. Some families have chosen to hire private college counselors. That's absolutely fine. But even if you have a private college counselor, you must follow West Ranch's dates and deadlines. It really comes down to respecting the fact that we have our own dates and deadlines. And with the volume of students, we need to make sure we are submitting on time. We want to do the best job possible. So please, 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 you have to respect those dates and deadlines. Okay. So if you have a private college counselor, let them know that we have deadlines, and we have them all posted, and we email you all the time. So check your email, super important. And of course, we have all kinds of information on the website, and you can always just pop in and ask your counselor. Okay, so all kinds of stuff. I just want to let you know it's there. I really want to, when you're thinking about moving off to college, some things to continue working on, not even just the application, is time management, managing your stress, resilience, like how you're dealing with setbacks when you're on your own, learning how to navigate that, your study skills, money management, believe it or not. But I think what's most important, being kind to yourself, be realistic, have a balance. These are all incredibly important skills to keep working on throughout high school so that you are ready to go in college. So I told you that I would touch on the questions from the Google form if I didn't address them in the rest of the presentation. And so we did talk about the standardized tests a little bit, the importance. And like I said, it's changing. So the SATs and the ACTs, the importance of those tests are definitely changing. And I wish I had a firm, solid answer for you. Most schools, especially for our 11th graders, are moving away from that. And so I think that that's going to be something that's going to continue to evolve over the next years. So if you're watching this as a 9th grader, I think we're going to have better answers for you as the years continue with that. So I would say moderate importance at this point, although super helpful for being used for placement purposes and meeting some requirements. So something to think about. And how soon will we college recommendation letter? Sorry, I just copied and pasted that one from the Google form. So apologies for that. I think that's how soon should we be requesting them? And so pretty early, if you're thinking early action, early decision, you want to start having this conversation with your counselor in late August, actually, and early September. If you're doing regular decision, you want to make sure you're having those conversations with your counselor really by the end of October. Best colleges and universities for a specific major, that is where Xello is fantastic. So Xello is really going to help narrow down college majors for you and universities, making sure you're finding one that is a good fit for you. And I think it's really important to highlight that really the best fit for you is the most important. Okay, so there's a lot of great colleges out there, but if you don't feel comfortable on the campus, they can be the best place in the world, but if you don't fit there and you don't like it there, it's not going to do any good. So you really want to find what's the best fit for you. We did talk about filling out the FAFSA. We very briefly touched on the CSS profile. CSS profile is similar to FAFSA in that it's an additional form or detail that is run through the College Board that many private schools will ask students who are applying for financial aid to fill out. It gets a little bit deeper into your financial status, and many private schools will ask for that to see if you qualify for any campus-based scholarships or grants. And they have their own dates and deadlines for those. Are private schools a good investment? Maybe. And so it really depends. So going back to the FAFSA, going back to the CSS profile, when you apply, and I know I mentioned like some of those schools like $80,000, many schools will meet 100% of student demonstrated need or family need. So it's important to know that. So when you apply for FAFSA, you apply for CSS profile, you gain admissions to a campus, you are then going to get what's called a financial aid award letter. That's going to break down what aid you qualified for, as well as the cost of attendance. And so all of that calculates something called an expected family contribution. So how much they expect your family to be able to contribute to the education itself. And they then break all of that information down and they get you the final cost. So it could be, there are some private schools that may end up giving you more aid than a public school. So a lot depends, but that financial aid award letter is going to be the guide to figuring out if it is a good investment on that side of things. Data and use of Naviance. This came up. We actually don't use Naviance anymore. So what we utilize is Xello. And so students can access it through their Waffle, right, in their Gmail. And it's spelled Xello, as you've seen. And so we no longer have use of categories, which we've had in the past. And so we do have students through our senior survey and through some Google forms we are sending out now that are letting us know where they're gaining admissions. we are working on, and it's going to take a while, I have to admit, but we are trying to work on our own little database to try to mimic that, but we no longer have that available. So you can get an idea through Zello, but it's no longer based on our student direct data. When do we start looking into scholarships and grants? Really, it's going to start your senior year the most. However, there are a sprinkling of contests and opportunities your junior year that you can start looking into, mainly for scholarships. Grants will come up more school-based, and then you'll see that through FAFSA. So you'll see them pop up again, mainly junior, senior year, but the most senior year. Start researching schools now. It's never too late to start to taking a look to see what kind of schools you might be interested in. And the big question, our college tours, is do them. How do you access them? Contact the school. So you can look at the school's website. We actually have links through Zello, and find out when they offer college tours. They do them year round, mainly in the spring, but it is a great opportunity for you to go ahead and check out, and fall as well. So if summer, they don't offer them as often, but if you have time, you can absolutely go check them out in summer. We have so many schools within driving distance that I encourage you to take advantage of. So I thank you all. This was a lot of information, and really it's not meant to cover every tiny little piece, but hopefully it sparked, it kind of cleared some things up and sparked any additional questions you may have that you want to reach out to your counselor to ask. We really want to get to know the students. So if you're sitting there with your parents and write down those questions, have the students come in. It helps us get to know them, because as you saw, we're going to have to write letters of recommendation at some point. So we want to make sure we're getting to know them and we can support that they're ready to head off into college. And so it just helps us see their smiling little faces. All right. Hope you're all doing well. Take care. Thank you for taking the time.